go on a hunt, but like hunting, you can't use an AR. I'm sorry, Paul, I know your opinion.
Say it again.
I'm saying for hunting, you don't need a gun that bad.
You guys already get into it.
What's bad about it?
You don't need that much.
What's necessary? Why do you need an AR-15?
Yeah, you don't need a semi-automatic.
A semi-automatic is not the problem. A semi-automatic.
Why do you need that much power? You can't use it as a
She's
hunting.
talking about machine gun. Why do you need that? Why do you need a gun that shoots? Why do you need a gun that shoots off that fast?
Yeah.
You've seen some of the people at the combines for shooting. The world record opens before even being called. And that's a double action. Hold the hammer down, pull it back again, and fire it. Is 3 seconds, 6 shots.
Why is it necessary to have a gun that shoots?
The second amendment is challenging a means of common defense.
Common defense. You do not need the AR-15 if they're not robbery.
I just feel like you don't need a semi-automatic because there's no. So for hunting purposes, you can't use it. So like, why? You can't.
Semi-automatic hunting rifle.
Yeah, no, she's saying you can't use an AR-15 when you're hunting. So
It's not that you can't. It's not that you can't.
Thank you very much.
It's that it's not ethical to use it because it's not a designated hunting rifle. I use semi-automatic hunting rifles all the time. A semi-automatic hunting rifle and an AR-15.
okay, why do you need an AK to hunt?
You don't use an AK to hunt.
Okay, why do you need an AK in general?
To defend yourself.
No, you don't need an AK to defend yourself.
Target practice. No. Recreational use. That is a thing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's the only thing America still has. Building guns, so many almost die.
Malachi, please state your mic. Jackson, Paul.
I already said
You did earlier. Great.
The Second Amendment's different than any other thing. If anything, if you want to control guns, restrict handguns.
All right, thank you all for coming. I'm really excited. I didn't think we'd have this big of a turnout, so that's great. If you guys just want to go around real quick and I'll introduce yourself, we'll start down on that end.
Let me get out of my chair. I'm Tom McNulty. I'm your school resource officer. I see a bunch of familiar faces. I know most of you. Maybe a few of you I don't know. I'm always available. I try to be here every day. If you have any questions, you can approach me at any time.
I'm Jim Horgan. I'm one of the state representatives, Farmington resident for about 26 years now. And I'm a phone call away if you need me.
Jay Drury, I'm your police chief. I started off my police career here in Farmington. I've been here 18 years now. I've been your police chief for about 4 of those. And it's awesome to see a great turnout like this. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'm Representative Joe Petri. I'm your representative. I'm a graduate of Farmington High School 54 years ago. Thank you.
I'm Mike Todd. I'm the Public Information Officer with the New Hampshire Department of Safety.
Cynthia Langley. I'm a current senior here.
I'm Sydney, and I'm a sophomore.
Malachi, and I'm a sophomore.
Emma Hunting, and I'm a sophomore.
Jackson Niles, and I'm a freshman.
Hi guys, it's Paul. I'm a junior.
Silas, and I'm a senior.
And I'm Erin, I'm also a senior. I know a lot of you guys already know me. Just a quick few things, just a reminder, this is a student-run panel. We're probably going to have our panelists start out, but if you guys have questions, absolutely raise your hand. If you're not really good at public speaking, but you still want to give your input, these are going to be out back, or maybe we can have one of our teachers out back hand them out around, pass the basket around to you guys, so that you guys can ask questions anonymously too. All right? Just also another reminder, we're not all going to share the same opinions, but please be respectful of everyone and their opinion. All right? Cynthia, do you want to start with a couple of your questions?
One of my major questions is why are semi-automatics available to the public, and why are they needed?
I'm gonna ask any of them.
any of you want to take that?
If I may? Sure. Tom McNulty, Farmington PD. I'm also used to be a gun salesman. I used to work for Kittery Trading Post. There's a huge array of firearms available. Semi-automatic and a revolver. We could go back and forth in discussion of the differences between them and which one would be a better firearm to sell or own or possess. Revolvers tend to have, although it doesn't shoot as many bullets, it tends to have a...
Officer McNulty, can you speak up?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
A revolver tends to have a larger round, a more strong round, more powerful than a semi-automatic. Semi-automatic would have a smaller bullet, lighter round. I used to do bowling pin shoots, and you'd want a revolver for doing a bowling pin shoot because you had to knock a bowling pin off the table. Whereas if you had a semi-automatic, you might have to put 2 or 3 bullets into that bowling pin before it went off the table. I think that it's misunderstood when you say semi-automatic. People think right away a military movie where they have a fully automatic firearm and they're shooting fully automatic. That's not what a semi-automatic is. What a semi-automatic is it discharges the spent round and then loads a second one, a next one in for your next shot. You can talk about those capacities, different capacities, magazines. Different states have different laws in regards to the capacity of the magazine. Magazine holds the rounds. You can do just as much damage with a revolver as you could with a fully semi-automatic pistol. They're both pistols. I think there's a lot of confusion when you say semi-automatic. Like I said, you're thinking of the movies with you pull the trigger and hold the trigger and it just keeps kicking out bullets. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
And I know, Malachi, you had a very good one too that we talked about before the meeting. If you wanna, do you remember? Before we talked, Malachi had asked me if he could ask. He wasn't sure what in New Hampshire was being done, if anything, in the laws. If you guys have been looking at, due to the current rise, or not really rise, but just the school shootings that have been happening. If any of you want to take that?
Well, one of the things you got to remember now, there's 50 million students in this country, all right? Actually, the shootings have gone down. You just hear about, and when you hear about a shooting, I mean, it's concern. One of the things, everybody up here has sworn to the Constitution, will uphold the Constitution, Second Amendment. Of course, you've all heard that argument. But we also are dedicated to keeping you safe. And if you don't, guns are a tool. A car can be misused, right? A truck. I mean, think about all the different things that, knives. And, and I've been on the Farmington School Board, and we take that very seriously. I mean, don't bring them to school. But you got to remember, they're just tools. In my day, all right, we used to bring guns to school, believe it or not. You couldn't do that today because people would probably freak out. But I can remember, I was just having a discussion with one of my classmates, and he actually brought a gun to school, and we took each a piece and, re-blued the barrel and did this and that. But we had respect for each other, and when somebody's having a problem here, listen to them. I don't care who you are. You're all classmates. I mean, you have a very unique situation here. You're small classes, right? I mean, very small classes, very small schools are great school. And you should appreciate that because you look at these big monstrosity of schools, big cooperatives, everybody comes from all different towns. That could be good to some people, but you are unique and take care of each other. Empathy.
All right, do any of you have any other questions?
Could I add to that?
Go ahead.
And I think that one thing that the police department is doing is we're being involved with the community, and we're asking the community to be involved with us. That's why we're here today. And that's one way that we are addressing it as a department, all right? It's very important, and people should feel free to come to us and safe to come to us if they have concerns that we would be able to address.
Do you have a question?
This is kind of a general question for any of the adults that are willing to take it. It's in respect to the shooting down in Florida. Did Parkland happen because of a weapon or because of an unsafe individual? Was that the fault of that person being able to get that weapon, or was that the fault of the school board not being able to recognize an unsafe student in the student body?
That's a tough choice. I think history will portray that it's going to be a little bit of both. I think there were a lot of things that were missed. I think they, and I don't want to second guess them down there. I know, it's an awful situation. It's one that I pray I never have to deal with. And, I think history is going to portray that it may be a little bit of both on that. I just think there were a lot of things that maybe were missed, and you guys are our eyes and our ears. Without you, we're blind and we're deaf. So, I think it was New York PD that came out with the see something, say something motto. And that is so true, because what you see and what you hear and what you can tell us, and that's one of the things that's so important, is I want you to be comfortable to come to your law enforcement and tell us anything. We're not going to judge, that's not our job. I joined this profession to help. I want to make our community better. And it's a long process, but in many cases I've assisted at the State House on different things. I'm not afraid to speak, and I will speak for you. And I'm so happy that you're here to share these concerns. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but I think we're just going to have to wait and see how kind of history kind of portrays this a little bit. I just wish they hadn't missed some things that maybe would have prevented that from happening. But we all enjoy our freedoms, and it's a fine line we have to walk to make sure that people enjoy their freedoms, but yet we're also protecting people and making people safe.
May I add to that question too? So I know I have a couple friends that do it, and I'm not going to say any names, but how do you tell the difference between kids who just sort of crack jokes and kids that might seriously be thinking about harming another individual or themselves?
It's having the rapport to be able to sit down with people and figure that out. One of the most important things is training. I'm a huge proponent of sending officers everywhere and to learn, because we're all learning every day. I'll learn something today, I'm most certain of it. And getting that training out there so that we can help people, because law enforcement right now is in an unusual role. We're tasked with being psychologists, being able to talk to people. It's a different role than being a cop was 40 years ago. And I think it's for the better, because we want to be part of the community and to be able to help and assist people. So I just want to portray that, whatever your concerns are, is to please come forward with them.
Add to that. I'm Mrs. Vaughn, I'm the superintendent. Another thing too is to reiterate what some of the people have already said here. You need to know one another, and if you hear something that's a concern to you, even if you think, this person might be joking around, but there was an edge to the voice, I'm concerned. Speak up, because sometimes people joke about things that maybe aren't as much of a joke, but they're trying to see how it's going to be taken. Some people truly are just trying to get the attention, but if it's attention that's needed, then we want to make sure that the correct type of attention gets where it needs to be, because when people become isolated, that's when things start to escalate. You need to know one another. We need to know you. It's not enough to just say, I go to school and I don't talk to the adults around me. It matters. This is a small community. We need to support each other. It's not, our best security is in understanding one another. It doesn't mean we're going to agree. It doesn't mean that we're all going to have the same ideas. We don't become little clones of each other. But you need to feel that you have a connection with somebody here, that you can speak up and say, that doesn't sound right. I'm concerned. And know that you're going to be taken seriously. Do we have all the answers? No. Are we going to do everything perfectly? Probably not. But the more opportunities we have to make those connections with each other and to understand where each one of us is, the more likely we are to get it right.
And Cynthia, I know you had a question.
I know how you were saying that the law enforcement wants to be more involved. If I was to come to you with something I saw, what steps would you guys then take?
Did you guys all hear that? Yep, okay.
There's a bunch of different things we can do. And depending on how you know, some people give us anonymous tips. An anonymous tip is a great thing, but it only goes so far. Because, like, for us to get a search warrant, we need to establish what's called probable cause, and we have to present that to a judge that it's more than likely that this is true. It doesn't have to be true, but it's more than likely. So in other words, a 51% chance that it's true. And so an anonymous tip is great, and especially if we get 5 anonymous tips, then all of a sudden we're like, this is looking pretty good. If you come to us with a concern, and you say, look, I really want to keep this confidential, we'll tell you. We will do our very best to keep that confidential. But I will tell you that there's certain avenues that are going to happen, such as if what you're telling me leads to going to court, we will tell you right up front that we may not be able to keep your name confidential, and we may call on you to testify because you've seen something firsthand that we haven't. So there's a lot of different avenues that we can take, and when you tell us, and if it's something really serious, then we're going to say, look, we need help on this, and you witnessed this, and for us to be able to move forward on this, it's going to have to, we're going to need a written statement from you, or permission to talk to your parents, depending on your age, and things like that. So there's a lot of different avenues that we can take to work with you, and depending on the severity of what you're telling us, to try and resolve the issue amicably amongst everyone. And sometimes it's just counseling, and we say, hey, someone has a problem with someone else. Can we sit down and discuss this so that it doesn't become a disaster? And shake hands and go our separate ways, and we've solved the problem. Sometimes it has to go a little bit further than that. I don't want to monopolize it, but I can tell you that I had to make an arrest of a gentleman a long time ago, and I don't like making arrests because it involves a lot of paperwork. However, I had to do it. It's part of my job, and that's part of the story. I treated that gentleman with respect. I treated him the way that I would want to be treated if I was in his situation. About a year later, he had done his time. He had done everything he was supposed to do. Came up to me, showed me his first paycheck he got from a real job, and thanked me for treating him with respect. And that's how you're going to get. It's water over the dam once it's done. And I just want you to succeed, and I want everybody to succeed. No matter what you've done, once the water's gone over the dam, I'll shake your hand and wish you the best day you could have, and I hope you'll do the same for me.
I have a question.
Sure.
Some schools have metal detectors and safety precautions when students enter school. Why do schools in New Hampshire not have them?
Do you want to?
Can you repeat that, Malcolm? I'm sorry.
Some schools have metal detectors and safety precautions that they take when students are entering schools. Why do schools in New Hampshire not have them?
Well, I can speak for us. I can't speak for all schools in New Hampshire. I think for us, it's twofold. One is just that, first, metal detectors are expensive. And as I'm looking at the general operating budget, certainly that's a consideration. It's not the first consideration. The other one is, as we're looking at building a school community, what type of atmosphere do we have? And while, yes, you can say, oh, we're going to put in metal detectors at every place that you come in, and you're going to have to get screened, and we'll have our own version of TSA. It'll be like the airport, and you have to go through. It's not that it can't happen. I think that also isn't foolproof. And I, number one, don't want it to be That's our security. So because we have that, we don't need the connections. The other piece is, I'm not looking to turn this into a maximum security institution, because the majority of people who come in and out through here are the solution, not the problem. And I'm not looking to put everybody in that, okay, now we're going to funnel you through and you've become a number and you're going to go through the metal detector. I'm not comfortable, if we have to go there, if I find out tomorrow that we have a situation that has become so bad that that's our only step, we're going there in a heartbeat and I'll find out a way to pay for it. But that's certainly where I hope we're not, because I think as a community, there are other things that may be a better first line of defense. You look like you have a follow-up.
Wouldn't you want safety before it happens and not after?
Absolutely. There's no question there, Malachi. No question there.
Can I?
No.
So Malachi, it's a great question, and I can let you know that the state is, the safety of the students in the state is a top priority of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. It's a top priority of the governor's office. I don't know how many of you really know how much time and effort and energy that we put in to ensuring your safety, and it's a professional concern. It's a personal concern. I've got 4 kids who go to school here. All the people I work with have kids who go to school here. When I look out, I see just another version of my own children, and we want to make sure that you're safe when you go in your schools, but we want to make sure that the schools aren't like a prison when you go in too. We can harden all the schools at a very expensive bill, but we can harden them to the extent that they're like prisons and they're no longer schools. You wouldn't want to go there. What we are doing is, since 2012, since Sandy Hook, we've been working with schools, and we're working with the governor's office to improve safety and security at the schools in the state. So things are being done. Now, metal detectors might not be one of those things, but we do know what the major 3 items that can be improved at most schools for low cost, relatively low cost, but also with a very high benefit to improving the safety of the students. It's access control, early notification, and emergency alerting. Those are the 3. Access control is incredibly important. Can people get into your school without the school knowing, without the school being able to monitor that individual? And that's where you come into play with that, because every school has a door that can be propped open, or might have a door that can be propped open. Every school has that painted rock that you stick in the door to keep it open, or maybe the lock that doesn't quite work. Some of these buildings are old, and some of them are showing their age. You have a beautiful facility here, but there might be a door or something like that you know about. You should let your administration know. Let them know that there's an issue. Let them know that there's something that may or may not need to be addressed. Now, Homeland Security and Emergency Management sends out, we provide school assessments to all the schools in the state. 88% of the schools have received these assessments, and they go through and they look at, these are subject matter experts in school security, and they go through and they look at everything in the school with an eye towards your safety and your security. And they talk with the school, and your SAU, your school here has had their assessment, and they're taking steps to improve the level of safety and security that's already here. And I'll let you know, I was outside today. Jay and I were outside today, and the wind's blowing and stuff, and I couldn't get in the building until they let me in. And that's the first step. Keep the aggressor out. But so you've already got some of these controls, but there are other things that we're looking at. And the governor's office has provided $20 million toward this problem. Now, we're not, a lot of times you hear the government providing money to solve a problem. We just kind of throw money at it. That's not what's happening here. We've gone through, we're talking to the schools, we've looked at what the schools need. We've been doing this since 2012, and now the money's available. This is targeted spending to improve particular issues with school safety and security. So there's a lot that's going on, and I can tell you this is at the forefront of everybody's minds, keeping you guys safe, and while still keeping the schools a place that you want to go. So, thank you.
Really quick, I have a question with how You were saying, Mrs. Vaughn, on how, as a tight-knit community, we need to get to know each other. Is it often with school shootings and those scenarios where we see kids who were or are being ostracized in school as the perpetrators of these school shootings? Is that something that we see often, or can it be anybody in the student body?
Can you repeat that just to summarize that a little more loud?
Yeah, so with these school shootings and having a tight-knit community, is it often that we see kids who are being ostracized in school or had been ostracized in school who are committing these school shootings?
So basically isolated.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, ostracized, she means kids being isolated. Are they usually the ones to commit the school shootings?
The most recent statistics I've seen, and I don't have a number on that, but the majority are people who have, for some reason, felt marginalized, whether everyone else recognized that they were kind of set off to the side or not. For some reason, that person was. There have been some where it's been more targeted, where you have one person come in who's looking for one or two other people, and there are others that are in the way, so to speak. In the last week, I read a statistic that said in the shootings since Columbine, which is, this is the anniversary, it's 19 years today, that 81% of the shootings that have happened, someone knew something ahead of time. That they've been able to document at least that much, that 81% of those, someone knew something ahead of time. Now, whether that would have been enough to prevent it, or to at least been able to mitigate the circumstances so that it wouldn't have been as horrible. But that's where that see something, say something comes in. If you've caught wind of something that's even just a maybe, don't wait.
So I am going to actually open up to the floor to you guys. I have two anonymous, so I'll start with there, and then if you guys have any that you feel comfortable, just raise your hand and we'll call on you. We'll sort of go back and forth through the panelists and open it up. So this one says, some New Hampshire schools have started displaying room numbers on the outside of the doors. Is this for safety reasons?
I can speak to that. Yeah, it is for safety reasons. The room numbers, it's a labeling program that Homeland Security Emergency Management is working together with the Department of Education and the SAUs. If the rooms are labeled, the doors are labeled, the windows are labeled, it helps first responders, and I'm sure that the SROs and the police representation that are here can speak to this as well, but helps first responders make better decisions and increases the chance of a positive outcome if an event occurs.
And then this one is, sorry, it's a little confusing, but at the bottom it says, did the sticker on the door save the school in Florida? So I don't quite know what they're referencing to. I'm sorry about that. But I did want to read it just because, so you guys have it. I don't know if you guys get any of that reference.
You have a question?
Do you think that one of the reasons that they're doing it is because parents don't care that they have these?
I did. Could you speak up, please?
So I think she said, and correct me if I'm wrong, do you think one of the reasons these shootings could be happening is because parents don't care?
Yep.
You know what, it's tough. I think sometimes we detach. I love having a cell phone and I can Google anything in a heartbeat. But I think sometimes we get on them too much and we're not doing things face to face. I kind of lean that way a little bit. I know, for my own household that dinner time is no electronic time. And you wouldn't believe, it always seems when we do that, that my darn phone decides to blow up. But I'm like, I set it aside so that I can spend time with my family. And that is important. I think that connection between yourselves and your parents, is important to stay on the same page and find out how their day was and find out how your day was. So, I lean maybe a little bit towards that, towards your question. But we are all a community, and we've got to support each other as well. if I've answered your question.
All right, I have one more on paper, and then if you guys want to ask any of yours, and then we'll sort of switch back to the crowd after. Is FHS reviewing their walk-down procedures? Are they effective?
We can do those together. Yeah, just a couple weeks ago, we did do a drill here, and that had been actually planned for quite some time. Part of it is my trying to get coordinated with the police department and make sure that if we're going to do a drill, that I can do that at a time when they're not already out on another call, and so sometimes when we have it planned, it doesn't happen the day that I planned it because they're not available. We are reviewing those procedures, and each time we find something that works really, really well, and sometimes we find, okay, there's something that needs to be tweaked. That's why we do drills. I mean, same thing with fire drills. Fire drills you guys have been doing since you were itty-bitty, and still, sometimes those go very, very well, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes when people are looking at it in terms of this is a drill, they might not take it quite as seriously. And so while, yes, you can work on those procedures, it doesn't always give you a completely accurate picture of exactly what's going to happen in the real situation. I'm not at this point looking to have people coming in shooting blanks just to see what people's reactions are. I don't think that's necessarily where we need to go. But I do want you to understand that for every drill that we have, we also have tabletop reviews. We go back through with administration. We talk to the faculty, what happened, what went well, what didn't work well, what do we need to change. We have been working with Homeland Security. We have had our security audits. We're looking to see what else needs to be tweaked. This is something that's an ongoing thing. It's never we have a plan and it sits on the shelf and it gets dusty. It's always constantly being reviewed because things change, and they change really, really fast.
Yeah, the lockdown drill that you did was awesome. It went so well, and to poor Officer McNulty we were at the Valley View doing theirs, and he got grabbed by a teacher and almost dragged into a classroom to make him safe, and because it was just a hand that came out of nowhere, thinking it was a student, and it went really well. You should be proud of yourselves. You did a great job. To let you know what we do behind the scenes just a little bit, we landed a helicopter on your senior parking lot one time, and to get our EMS involved with, if something did happen, how do we react to it? Where are we going to stage and things like that? And we have my two sons who love airsoft guns. Got to play the bad guys, and we had our SWAT team come in and figure out how to save everyone, but yet also apprehend them as active shooters. So those are things that we do behind the scenes that you don't get to see. They're sometimes really cool. I wish we could show them to you, but we are always working to better ourselves and training. We've been doing this since probably the last 6 years, I would say, probably, and trying to do it at least once a year, or at least pretty close to that if we can do something.
And that way the officers are familiar with the buildings as well.
So, just real quick, and this is actually a question for the students, because I know that particular question has come up a lot in like classes I've been after shooting. Do you guys feel like that, not the drills, but the actual procedure itself, and maybe like, do you think that's effective? If we did have a school shooting, do you think that drill would be effective? No? All right. Because I know a couple.
I could just add to that.
I don't understand why when we have a code orange or a code or whatever, they put us all in one spot in the same classroom.
Yeah.
It kind of feels like we're just
grouped
sitting
together,
ducks.
so if someone wants to come into the room, it's a lot easier to target than students who are spread out.
So like, why is that like your go-to code for something like a school shooting?
Like when we have a code orange, they put us all in the corner of the room and no one's spread out at all.
Well, number one, we're not using code at this because we have also found, and through other research in other places, that if you try to do, okay, well, it's a code purple or it's a code blue or it's a code, we try not to use that, hospitals use that, but other codes, what people in the moment tend to forget, oh, what color is it? No, we're just going to state it. If it's a lockdown, we're locking down. Bang. You're going to know that. We're not going to be yelling codes at you and try to figure out which pieces. That's okay. And it used to be. We used to have all the codes in there, and we're naming it. It's what it is. As far as the doors locked down, it's getting people out of sight, silent, so that somebody looks in. If they're looking for targets, looking to make sure that nobody's visible. I understand that there's probably more than one space there that's possible, and that is probably going to be a classroom by classroom thing. To just say we're going to just open the doors and have everybody run, again, you have to know where things are going on. And so if you're in a place that you know that everything is happening on the other side of the building, but you have to know that if you open that door, there's not somebody standing outside the door. So again, first is to get yourselves disappeared as best you can. As soon as we can get you out, or if you can move safely, that's another issue. But for me to just say, run first, until I can guarantee that you've got a safe way out, sometimes appearing that you're not there is safer than being in the hallway with a nice long sight line.
I don't think people were saying that they wanted to be spread out outside of the classroom. I think that, if you're in a classroom, you're all in one spot. Why not put people in different spots within the classroom?
Or even, I know some schools, instead their procedure is they either have some sort of tool to keep the door shut, or to just, they have something in the classroom, like, I know in some of our classrooms our furniture, like our wardrobes and stuff, are actually drilled into the wall. Other schools it's not, so that if there was a drill, they would actually move that in front of the door to keep people out.
There are some things you can move, and there are some things that we're required by law actually to have that, so it doesn't fall and kill somebody, because that's also frowned upon. As we look at our different options, you've got both security and life safety issues, and I don't have the fire chief here, but as we were doing the walkthroughs with Homeland Security, yes, there are tools that you can use to jam the door, and if it's a lockdown, you probably want to do that. On the other hand, if you have that plus a fire issue going on, the firemen are looking at it, we need to get in that door. Everyone else is looking at, keep that door shut. And so we do have to arrive at a compromise, and that's where, when I'm spending a lot of quality time with these gentlemen working through the plans and what can work in what instance, there are some things that as a faculty we have to sit down and say, okay, in this instance this, and in this instance that, and you know what, there are times that you're just going to have to make your best call. And that's why we want folks to understand what their options are, but I can't necessarily give you every contingency, because that's not the way things work.
Can I add to that as well? So we all know there's been more than 300 shootings, school shootings, since Sandy Hook. That's a startling number. The one thing that can come out of that is that when these events occur, there are after-action reviews. The entire country, all the Homeland Security advisors, your local police departments, they look at what happened and how can we be better next time? How can we be better next time? The procedures that you guys practice here are compiled from all those different experiences that have occurred in this country, and they are the best method of keeping you safe. I know that when you're your different concerns, Malachi's concerned, you're in one place, or you're concerned that why can't we just run? Experience is the key factor here, and people who have actually experienced these events have helped come up with the plan that you're practicing every time. That will keep you alive. You follow the plan, and when you follow the plan, take it seriously. You gotta practice like you're gonna play, because you're gonna play like you practiced. And so when you're doing these things, you gotta take them seriously. And actually, I'd like to go back to one other thing too. If you see something, you say something. Develop relationships with one another. We've got to do a better job of talking to one another, letting each other know that we care about each other. And if your friend's joking about a school shooting or something, that's not a laughing matter. Tell them not to do it. This is not a time in our country when you should be joking about those things. And there can be real consequences for you if you do. And even if it's a joke, we can't be joking about these things. We've got to take it seriously. I know you guys are at the forefront of this. You guys know this information as well as we do, and a lot of the statistics you probably know even better. But just remember, if you see something, say something, and don't joke about it, because there can be real consequences that will follow you through your life if you're making jokes and it snowballs. So, but the procedures that you follow are from hundreds of experiences, and they are the best procedures available.
All right, I know we have a couple of questions here and a couple of questions in the panel, so we'll sort of go back and forth. I know you had a question, if you want to stand up and ask.
So the shooting that took place in Florida was by a previous student, and like you said, we've been doing these procedures since we were little, and so if that were to happen here, wouldn't the shooter know exactly where everyone was in the classrooms?
The Florida incident was with the assailant there was a tragedy. The front line of defense is seeing something and saying something. In that instance, the young man was troubled. The young man is troubled, and if certain actions had been taken, maybe it would have been avoided. I can tell you here that when a report or a tip is given to the police here, they act on it. I know your chief can respond to that. But when we receive something at the state level, we react to it. The state reacts to it. The local police react to it. This isn't, your tips don't go into a bottomless pit. When you call someone and say, I'm concerned about this, that doesn't just go into our filing cabinet. It's called a trash can. That goes into a process through which we reach out and we confirm and evaluate and make sure that certain measures are being taken to keep you safe. So there's no time when your understanding of what your fellow students are going through is not paid attention to. If you know you have a friend or someone who's struggling with something, talk to your local police, talk to your school advisor, talk to your principal, talk to your teacher, tell somebody. Tell someone what you're experiencing, tell someone what someone else might be experiencing, and together, by caring about one another and working together, we can stop these things before they occur.
If I may add to that, sort of to the students again, because again, this is something I know we've talked about in classes before, especially with the lockdown procedure. How many of you feel confident in going to our administrators, going to our counselors, going to our teachers to report things like this? Do you? Yeah. Go ahead. All right, I'm going to read this and then we'll give it back to you guys if you have any more questions. How can students and staff take political action to encourage more protective factors such as additional counseling, individualized education plans, substance abuse treatment, and after-school activities?
Repeat it again,
Jim?
Yeah, well, I apologize, one more time, just because it's a good question.
All right, how can students and staff take political action to encourage more protective factors such as additional counseling, individualized education plans, substance abuse treatment, and after-school activities?
Doing this is an awesome step, and I'm so proud of you for being here. You have no idea. It takes a lot of guts to be in here, and you have my ultimate respect. This is one of the first steps in doing that, in my opinion. And I don't want to speak for the school, but I feel they probably are very similar opinion of that. This is great, and I'll do this as many times as you want.
Yes, our numbers are published. New Hampshire General Court, you Google that, you can reach either one of us. We're your representatives. What you probably don't understand is that you can go and testify. Just like we're just doing the same thing here that we do at the State House, public hearings. All right, and actually your boss, Commissioner Plummer, he testified before us. We had a bill that the safety plan was not being shared. Only the superintendent was getting it, and of course the Department of Education should get it, safety, you folks. And those are the kind of things, but you have access. You got to be aware of your own security and do what you, by the plan, or what each individual event. You don't know. I mean, is it wise to run out of the school? Well, I could be the plan of the perpetrator. You know, you have to be careful. You have to take care of yourselves and each other, as Mr. Todd said. So, and it's ongoing. And I know if you call me, all right, you can be anonymous. And if you call me, I see that number, I will call you back. It may take a day or two, you never know, but I always call back because I am your representative, and I take that very seriously.
As far as politically on the local level, you know, a lot of those things that you mentioned tend to be budgetary items. And when I take a budget to the school board has been extremely supportive of the requests that we've made. When it goes to the next step and goes to the budget committee and goes to the larger community, sometimes it's supported and sometimes there's a lot of pushback. Why would we need to hire more social workers and counselors? You already have a guidance counseling staff. That's already taken care of. That's not the school's role. And I beg to differ. And not everyone in the community who went through school back when they did understands that there are some things that have shifted quite a bit. And your testimony can help, because I can stand up there and give statistics and say this is what we see as a need in our school. But it has a lot more weight when you stand up and say this is the difference that it can make or has made for us if this is possible. When we do public hearings before the budget committee, when we have the deliberative session, which is town meeting style meeting where we argue for hours on end about the school budget and the things that are coming forward, while sometimes there are parts of that that are kind of like watching paint dry, there are also parts of that that affect you very, very profoundly. And having your presence there and having your input is huge. And if you're willing to be part of that process, I am more than willing to help walk you through how you can be a part of that, particularly as we go into the next budget cycle for the fall.
I know Jackson had a question. He hasn't spoken yet, so if you want to do him, and then I passed out some cards, so if you guys want to read those after.
Are these school shootings and stuff a gun-related issue, or is this a social media and society-related issue? Like social media glorifying all these school shootings?
I can speak to a little bit.
Did you guys all hear that?
That's a good question.
No? Just real quick, Jackson, could you repeat yourself? Some people in the back didn't hear.
Are all these school shootings that are going on, are they more of a gun-related issue, or are they social media glorifying these issues, or is it because society is just not there? I mean, there's parents that are, like, their kids will do something, and there's just parents that just don't downright care about what their kids do, and that's leading to these?
I don't think there's any one item that you could choose there. That's the problem in particular. This isn't something that's going to go away. This is not going to stop. Okay, we're in a new stage in our public world where this is a trend. It's a continuing trend. I'll say that. The key is, as we've been saying and repeated, and I know you guys are here, you're the ones who are involved, so I know that you're the ones who will do this. Talk to your friends about it. If you see something, say something. It's not about how someone looks, it's about behavior. It's about things that they've said. It's about things that you see online. And this is effective. See something, say something. The program has been around for a few years now, and it has stopped countless numbers of events occurring at schools. Some of them you've heard about, some of them you haven't. And the planning as well. These emergency response plans, the lockdown plans, these drills that you go through, these are effective. Go back. I challenge you. Go back. Look at the schools where they've had these things occur. Read what the people who were there said. They say in their testimonies, they say to the news, and they say over and over, our drills, our practice, our lockdown drills saved lives today. Saved lives today. That's the key point. So you can have faith in these things. You just need to know them and make sure you talk with one another. And as you hear, if you hear something that's concerning, talk to your friend about it, and talk to the police, or talk to your counselor or your teacher. Make sure you let them know.
You've heard this several times. So first, I'd like to thank you for having us here and for coming. Representative Petri and I have to bail out of here in just a few minutes. But I just want you to know that you are your best and first line of defense. It's been said several ways, several times today. You do need to know each other. I would ask you not to be afraid, but be aware of your surroundings. And the say something, see something, say something can't be overemphasized. Things won't happen around here if you are actively involved. Not everybody's going to be your best friend, but take the time to know who's in your class, who's in your school, who's in your arena. And when you hear those things, if you ask the chief here how he solves crimes, chances are he didn't walk into a space and all of a sudden have all the answers. He got a little bit from everybody. So if you share what you know and you share what you know, and they put it all together far enough in advance, they can prevent these things from happening. So you are the best in the first line of defense. Keep that in mind. Be aware of your surroundings and play safe. Thank you.
We are coming sort of to the end of the time. I know some of you have to leave right on time. If any of you can stay, we do have a couple more questions from the crowd. But if you can't, thank you so much for coming. This is an awesome opportunity. Can you give them a round of applause, guys? If you guys want pins too, we have pins for you guys. Oh, they're trapping me in here.
Yeah, I'm going to stay as well.
Do you want me to just take those too? I believe so.
Oh, alright, so they'll just keep going with these guys, right?
Yeah,
So,
thank you guys for staying a little longer.
I've been here 18 years, and like I said, I've learned something every time I come in this building. It is definitely a form of education, and in getting to know you, and in working with you, these things are all progressing, I think, much better. And you may have some ideas out there, and I'm sure you have ideas that are going to rock this world, whether you know it or not. And that idea may not have come to you yet. So I would encourage you that, through your chain of command and your staffing here, even if you just drop a note and go, "Hey, I noticed this the other day. Is this cool? Could this be something that could be better?" You may have ideas, and I am sure you'll have ideas that will far excel what we're doing. But we are trying to take those steps in the right direction and spend this money the best possible way we can, and get the best results out of it. I don't want to waste. Part of money's my tax dollars too. I don't want to see it wasted.
Can I add to that? So how many of you are driving? How many of you drive? About half the room. Some of you, I know some of you are driving out there. I can see some of you are driving, you're not raising your hands. But how many of you drive a brand new car, 2018? 2018 has the best safety features out of any other car out there. Can't afford it. You can't afford to do every single thing to meet for every possible contingency. The reality is that there's just not enough money. And what we'd end up with if we spent the kind of money we're talking about to make it 100% safe, which isn't possible. Life is just not possible. We'd have to make the schools hardened to the point that they'd be like a prison. And we would be draining every other resource that we have. It is a top priority. And $20 million is the grant program that's been provided this year. And I'm sure there'll be more. But certainly, at some point, you got to understand that you can throw money at things, but you're not going to make it any better. The key is, like the representative said, like we've been saying, is to work together as a front. You're the front line, and to talk to each other and get help for people who need it.
I have something to add. What safety precautions have been taken? Because when I come to school, the only safety precaution that I see is just the recovery. What has the money been spent on?
If I could, the school has, I know Ms. Vaughn has done a lot to try to move forward. She's working on stuff. The department with our training, we train constantly, as the chief said. I can't tell you what all that training is. We do have response plans. We do have, in case of an emergency, we do train to the point where it's a reaction. It's not just, we've practiced so much that we would react, as much as we think about turning around and walking in the other direction sometimes. Chief, as he said, is very huge on training and making sure that we have the tools that we need as police officers. Right? The school, from my outside view, the school is constantly looking to make things better. The schools and the administrations, and see where the flaws are, see where the weaknesses are, move forward. Some of it doesn't even cost any money. It's just, some of it is just doing drills like we did 2 weeks ago, just to see how it goes. Went better than we thought. We were amazed. So there's constantly things being done. I can't tell you what all they are. I'm sure Ms. Vaughn maybe can give you more information, but.
Well, and Malachi, to be honest with you, there are some things that I can tell you, and there's an awful lot I can't. Because it's a security plan. And the minute I give you all the details of here's what's in place, then that security is no longer secure. And that's frustrating because people want to see, okay, what's being done? And I can tell you that we've done a lot in conjunction with the fire and police departments. We've worked with Homeland Security. We are constantly looking to see what else we can do. We have applied for additional grant funding because there are some other pieces that we want to do. But even that, in a public meeting, I can say we've applied for it, and I can give you the areas that we've applied for monies to cover. Beyond that, I'm not allowed to discuss the security plan publicly because it
involved in the armchairing of it afterwards, but it seems like they weren't in a secured room.